This is one of the things that happened in this period identified by the CEO of the Institute of Race Relations of this this decline. It was very deliberate, very conscious. Some people decided that. I'm saying it's a very specific example with all of the details to substantiate the point I'm trying to make, that this negative decline, which the Institute of Relations is talking about, was not accidental. The notion is put about that, no, this was because there were greedy people and there were corrupt people. Yes, indeed, there were greedy people and corrupt people. But there were also other people who had a political objective, which was to destroy the democratic revolution. And those of us who are old enough will remember that the first time we had a national shutdown, load shedding, national, was in January 2008. Professor Nzovu, you remember that? It was January 2008, load shedding, national. The mines closed down for a whole week. Serious crisis. And the argument was that the reason for that was because Eskom had told the government in 1998 that there must be investment in new infrastructure. And the government didn't listen. New infrastructure for generation. Government didn't listen. Hence the blackout in January 2008. That story was false. That story was cooked up. The reason there was a shutdown in January 2008 is because the people who were in charge of the power stations didn't do what they were supposed to do, which was to replenish coal, so that you got coal nearby to put into the power station. They didn't. The power stations ran out of coal, not because there was no coal in the country, but the people in Eskom decided, let's shut it down. I'm saying, but the lie was told that, it's because the government didn't do this investment. It was not true. There is somebody who was an old friend of mine. I don't know if he still is. I think he still is. Brian Molefe. Brian gets appointed to head Eskom in 2014, April or thereabouts. And by August 2018, they had finished with the load shedding. Again, all of us who are old enough will remember that. Already then, that 2014, no more load shedding. 2015, no more load shedding. 2016, no load shedding. It comes back towards end of 2017. And all what they did, Brian and his colleagues, was to maintain the equipment properly. To maintain the equipment properly so that you don't have to have these shutdowns. Now, if you ask anybody, what did Brian and the others do in 2014, such that for so many years there was no load shedding? They'll find all manner of reasons. Instead of looking at this one, to maintain, to repair, to do whatever. And indeed, for so many years, there was no load shedding. He left. After a little while, it came back. So I say, it was very correct of Brian Molefe to say, I've been brought from there to here to deal with this matter of load shedding. Let's look at it seriously and act on it, which they did with positive results. So by the time this load shedding comes back in 2017, 2018, you must be able to guess why. It's because you got new people who don't behave in the way that Brian Molefe behaved. Why? I think it's deliberate. Seven years after Kusile started building the Kusile power station, 7 years after they started, there was not one, whatever you call it, of electricity that was coming from Kusile. After 7 years, nothing. What Eskom did was to contract an Indian company to come and build Kusile. The company came and built Kusile Unit Number 1 in a much shorter period than was expected. And Kusile Power Unit Number 1, there it is, generating electricity. After 7 years, this Indian company was able to solve whatever the problem was. So it is not as though during the 7 years there were no ideas as to what is it to do in order to make sure that Unit 1 produces electricity. But the people were there, decided that they would not use that knowledge until the Indians were brought in. We used that knowledge, and in no time, Unit 1 was working. And then there's a strange thing that happens. So the Indians are expecting that their contract will be extended so that they do Unit 2 and Unit 3 and so on. No. Eskom says to them, we will extend the contract on condition you get a BEE partner. So, what the Indians had done, they had brought something like 50 engineers and technicians from India to do this power station. So, of course, they say to Eskom, we don't understand what you mean by this black economic empowerment. But for instance, if you have some black engineers to join ours, so maybe that. No, we don't have people like that. And they were training 150. As they were working on that Kusile thing and Mitupi, they were training 150 people. But because they couldn't agree on this BEE thing, they terminated the contract of the Indians. So Indians went home. Kusile is still not finished to this day. I'm saying it's deliberate. It's people who have wanted to produce this electricity crisis in the same way that they wanted to produce a resource a revenue crisis by the destruction of SARS. You look at all of the state institutions. Look at Transnet. Look at what's happened to the police service. Look at the prosecution. All of these things going wrong systematically. Is it an accident? There's a whole process that takes place in this country which still we don't understand, of a systematic process to ensure that the democratic republic doesn't succeed. That's one of the things I think it's necessary for us to understand, because it would then help us also to understand even the question that's raised about crime. None of these negative things that happen in this period identified by the CEO of the Institute of Race Relations, none of them are accidental. None of them are a result of greed. Sure, there is greed. Sure, there is corruption. But at the base of it all is to make sure that we fail. It's necessary to understand that. What is it that is wrong? In order to be able to find the right answers as to what is to be done. I must apologize for all of this long presentation. But I think it's a matter of strategic importance for the future of our country to understand what went wrong. I'm saying because there were deliberate processes put in place by some people to make sure that this democratic republic fails. That's a matter that we need to still discuss even with the ANC. I don't think the ANC understands that reality. It is true that you have got many greedy people, many corrupt people. If I ask the question, why is the ANC, which marginalized people as we are saying, why is it behaving like this? In 1997, Nelson Mandela says, addressing an ANC conference, that something wrong is happening, which is that as the ANC were attracting into our ranks people who are not ANC. People don't have the values of the ANC. But they can see that to be a member of the ANC is to have a stepladder to government in order to have the possibility to steal. So that's 1997, National Conference. That message has been repeated in all of the national conferences since then. But nothing has ever been done to get rid of these ones who entered into the ANC without carrying the value system. We beginning of 2020, we met 350 leaders of the ANC in Durban. We're talking about the ANC. So I make a presentation about the ANC, what the ANC is, what it stands for, and all that. And later, a young fellow stands up and says, President, I do not know this ANC you are talking about. because I joined a faction of the ANC. The faction recruited me, identified itself as a faction. That's the ANC I know. The ANC I know is an ANC organized in factions. This one you're talking about, I have never heard of it. This was illustrating a point that the ANC had accumulated within its ranks wrong people. Wearing ANC t-shirts, they know how to toy and to sing and dance and all that, but they are not ANC. So the 2017 conference, national conference of the ANC decided the ANC must renew itself, otherwise it will die. That was in December 2017. Nothing happened in terms of that renewal process, nothing. The last conference in 2022 repeats that message. The ANC must renew itself. Nothing has happened so far. But the ANC must renew itself. I say to the ANC comrades that when you say I must go campaigning next year, to say to people, vote ANC. How am I going to do that? To say, vote ANC. When I know very well that the branch of the ANC in this constituency is led by a criminal. You can't. It's not possible to go and say, vote ANC for a criminal. The renewal process is important. But now, colleagues, I'm sorry to be talking ANC politics to you. The obvious challenge with regard to that renewal process is that as people talk about this ANC must renew itself because it had accumulated wrong sorts of people who are now doing wrong things, being greedy, corrupt, and all this. I look at myself and I say, it's going to catch me, this process. So what do? I must block it. I must make sure it doesn't happen. I'm answering our colleague from the Northern Cape to say, let's objectively look at the reality he was talking about. It's a much larger reality of our saying a systematic process to destroy the democratic state all around. I'm talking about even the governing party, which has got people within itself who will resist its renewal and therefore perpetuate this reality that you've got people in the ANC who are greedy, who are thieves, who are corrupt. To perpetuate that, if you don't renovate, you don't renew the ANC, you will perpetuate that. That's the reality we've got to deal with. So the question remains, like on the crime issue, what is to be done? What do we do to defeat these people who systematically want to destroy this democratic state?